So welcome everybody to ActiveRain University. My name is Bob Stewart, and today we're going to talk about creating awesome calls to action. And so I want to start with where are we, because this is the fifth class in this boot camp series, and it's really, they build on each other. So in our first class we talked about how to write a blog post that ranks in the search engines. Like, what are the things on the page we need to do? We need to pick a keyword phrase. We need to use our keyword phrase. We need to make sure it's part of the anchor text. There's a bunch of things we need to do, and in class 1 we talked about that. In class 2 then, we talked about keyword phrases, like what should we be writing about? What should you guys be focusing on? How should you be constructing keyword phrases as you think about writing your next blog post? Class 3, we did a little deviation or kind of a break, and this was a bonus class. We talked about Google author authority and Google authorship. Super important if we want to get our stuff to rank. Last week, we dove into this post and pray method, or how to avoid that, which is essentially, once I have a piece of content, how do I get it out there, share it? What are some of the things I want to be thinking about once I have a piece of content to market that content to a wider audience, instead of just sitting on my hands and hoping somebody finds it in the search engine? Which brings us to today, where we're going to talk about calls to action in our blog posts. What are the things that we can do, or the ways that we can go about generating leads with the blogs? And this is class 5 of 5. So as we kick this class off, I think it's important to just, at a real high level, talk about why do people go online for real estate. And there's really 3 reasons, okay? It can all be boiled down to 3 reasons why people go online. And this is not going to shock anybody, right? And in fact, my last bucket there, information, that's kind of a catch-all, right? But the majority of folks that are going online as it relates to real estate are looking for listings, right? And so you get these massive numbers at websites like Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com of people every month going online and looking at listings. And then home values would be that next reason why people are going online, right? They want to try to figure out, what is my house worth? And then there's this, like I said, it's a big bucket, information. I mean, that literally covers everything else, right? It might be tax rates. It might be, information about mortgages. It might be just information about, like, areas where they're interested in potentially moving or living. So these are the reasons why people go online, and we're going to kind of look at here in a little bit, kind of what are some of the things we can do with each one of these little buckets to make sure that our blog posts have kind of the points in them, those connection points that allow somebody to easily reach out to us or to get what it is that they want when they were on our content. So a bunch of this class, you guys, is going to be focused on your own website, or where you're sending people out of your blog. So your blog might be about something, and they want, like, it's about a particular condo building, and then they want to find the listings in that condo building, or maybe they own something in that building and they wanted to find the value of their place. We're not going to be able to do that necessarily in our blog, especially when we think back to some of our past classes and we think about that concept of evergreen, right? Where we're writing blog posts that are as good today as they will be a year from now. We need to figure out then, okay, how can we use our blog posts to get the person over to the current content, right? To the current listings from today, to the current market stats, to a page where they can find out current valuations for their home, stuff like that. So I really want you guys to think about the purpose of your website, and I'm going to put forward that somewhere in your arsenal, okay, somewhere in your arsenal, you need to have a website that is capable of generating leads. And so today, as we go through this class, there's going to be a bunch of times where I use an example site, and it's the site from Market Leader. There are other sites out there that do these same things, okay, but I'm very familiar with the Market Leader one. And so I'm going to show you kind of some of the things that those sites do that allow you to be able to generate leads. So really keep in your head, like, what is the purpose of your website? There's going to be some things that I talk about, I share, and I show that I hope you are able to identify whether or not your website does these things, because in some cases, if your website does not do these things, well, then you're going to have a little bit harder time probably generating leads with your blog than somebody who's more equipped. So there's right as we get started here on calls to action, there are a few things on ActiveRain itself that I want to draw your guys' attention to and make sure that you get set up, because these are things that you set up one time, and then they're kind of present either alongside or at the bottom of your blog posts forever essentially. So there's some universal settings on ActiveRain, and right now we're looking at kind of a couple of sections that show up on the right-hand side of your blog on ActiveRain. And if we wanted to take a look at what that looks like in person, we're essentially seeing this section right here, right? We call that like a virtual card. We see this little section right here, which is, we call this our lead widget, right? It's your ability to kind of real easily allow somebody to ask you a question. And then we've also got this real estate resources section. All of these can be manipulated by going in and editing your profile. Okay, when you get in to edit your profile, you'll see your ability to change what this question looks like. You'll see your ability to add real estate resources. These things also show up on your profile, right? And so if we were to go over here and look at Katrina's profile, there's also going to be these calls to action on the page, right? Especially that one with the question box, and I apologize, it looks like either my internet's just a tad slow or you guys know what your profile, here it is. And here's this ability for somebody to ask a question of us. One of the reasons why this becomes important, maybe even if you're not like really blogging extensively, if I Google Katrina's name right now, and I did this yesterday, I'm not going to do it for you guys today, but if I Google her name, her ActiveRain profile is actually the very first thing that shows up. And so when somebody lands on this page, we want to make sure that we've got, a good kind of headline or call to action in here, and you can edit this and manipulate it and make it say whatever you want. Hers says, ask me about real estate. You want to make sure that has something that kind of draws someone's attention, because, gosh, just if they Googled your name and they found your ActiveRain profile, you want to give them that real easy way to contact you. Now, if they've Googled something else, right, they don't know you, they're looking for the Bavarian Village condos, or they're looking for how to buy a house in Anchorage with a low down payment, or whatever it is, we want to make sure we've got this stuff set up so that you've got these really clear and easy calls to action. And again, these are going to be on every single blog post that you write. So take some time to get in there and get these set up. That real estate resources section, that'd be something where I'd put links to really important sorts of blog posts that I wrote that might be just universally applicable to anybody that was on my blog. And so you see she's got some for like pre-approved for a home loan, Anchorage community reports, Anchorage school district ratings, an Anchorage neighborhood guide, right? These are resources that she has on her website that she can easily and quickly get somebody pointed to. So utilize those tools that we give you. The next one would be a great blog signature. Okay, and you can see an example here from a lady out of New York, the Hudson Valley of New York, Deborah Walsh. She has a really clean, awesome blog signature. So when somebody gets done reading her blog, man, if they wanted to follow her on Twitter or connect with her on LinkedIn or search for homes, she's got a little link in there for search for homes. Somebody can head off and do that, and it's very clean and nice. If you're interested in how to make a more effective blog signature, the best thing for you to do is to go to ActiveRain, and up here at the top of any page on ActiveRain, there's this ability for you to search. Right? I just use something like this, and you can literally search for just about anything as it relates to how to do something on ActiveRain, or really how to do anything in real estate. I mean, considering we have over 3 million blog posts our members have written, they cover just about everything. But what you'll find is a pretty easy tutorial that kind of helps you through how to set up. Let me get my internet's a little slow. It's a good thing I've got a bunch of my pages preloaded here. That helps you walk you through how you could get to something like what Deborah has here, or something close. Okay? Again, these things are going to show up on every blog post that we're going to write. How to build a Gmail signature, new signature and theme creations, email. You might have to look a little bit. Okay, creating an email signature. There's somewhere in here is your ability to create an ActiveRain signature. And again, like I said, that's going to show up at the bottom of every single piece of content that we create, right? So we do it once, and it's always there as kind of this this real light call to action. The stuff we're going to talk about in the body of the blog post are going to be a little bit more pointed calls to action. These are just some general ones that you want to make sure we can take a look at. Katrina's, here's hers, right? She's got, you know, the ability to connect with her. She's got some links back to her website, and she's even gone in and kind of created this little spreadsheet that shows all of the houses that her team has sold in the Anchorage area. But, you know, there's a lot you could do down in that signature area. Just make sure it's got, you know, your phone number, right, an ability for somebody to get back and search for homes on your website, and then probably some of these social media types of integration points where somebody could connect with you in other places. Okay, so those are universal. We're going to do those one time as a part of your action items from class today. It will be to go in there and get these things set up. Let's get back to why they go online and directly as it relates to our blog posts and how we're going to be able to get that information that they wanted in front of them. So the first reason people go online, and like I said earlier, it's the most prolific reason why people are going online in our industry, is to find listings. Okay, and I don't think this is a surprise to anybody out there. And if we think back to like our class on keyword phrases and even our SEO class, and a lot of the examples I've used throughout our bootcamp series, they've been around this idea of people finding listings, right? It's people are looking for homes for sale in a specific subdivision or condos for sale in a specific building. They might have wanted information about that building, and that's what our blogs kind of hope to achieve. But at the end of the day, they probably wanted the listings, and so there becomes this kind of challenge in how do we write an evergreen blog post that's going to keep updated and fresh listings in front of visitors who might not find that blog post for 6 months or for a year. Okay, so the most obvious way that we're going to get somebody to our listings, and probably the most effective way, is going to be via a link, right? And this is not, I'm pretty sure everybody on here knows what a link is. I would say 95% of you know how to create a link on ActiveRain. And I would say, you know, every one of us has clicked a link somewhere on the web, right? It's a very common deal. Now, a couple of things about the link. Okay, we're going to have specific anchor text. And in our SEO class in week 1, we talked about how we want to have somewhere in our blog post, we want to have an anchor text link, so a link with words that match our keyword phrase. So if our keyword phrase was Bavarian Village condos for sale in Anchorage, we'd want to have a link in our blog somewhere using the phrase Bavarian Village condos for sale in Anchorage. Okay, that link then is going to land them in an exact spot, and we're going to want to attempt, anyways, to get them to the place we want them to be in as few clicks as possible. And if you land them in the exact spot, there should be no clicks essentially to get them what they want. And I'll show you what I mean by this in a minute, but this is a very key point in your ability to generate leads. And you guys, we learned this the hard way many, many years ago. If you ever have done pay-per-click, you start to learn very quickly that the more efficient and effective you are at getting people to the right places, the higher you can convert them into a prospect for your business. So again, I'll show you what I mean by this. And then when you're linking to listings, right, you've got a blog post about the Bavarian Village condos, and you've got a link in there that says, you know, Bavarian Village, like click here to find Bavarian Village condos for sale in Anchorage, where just the words Bavarian Village condos for sale in Anchorage become the link, right? When they click that, the first thing they need to see on that page they land on is listings, okay? And again, I'm going to show you what I mean by all of this. So here's an example, homes for sale in Seattle's Cedar Park, right? That's the title of the blog post. That's the keyword phrase that I decided to target, right? This is a neighborhood inside of Seattle. You'll notice my link, right there in green, you see it, matches the words in my link, the anchor text match my keyword phrase. Again, we talked about this in week 1, but it's really, really important. Okay? You want to make sure that that link, that first link on the page, is going to get them to the potential listings that this blog post talks about. and that it's above the fold. And what I mean by above the fold, I'm sure you guys know this term. It's an old newspaper term, right? It essentially means like you didn't have to flip the paper over to see it, right? It was above the fold. What this means today is they don't have to scroll down, right? Because if they were literally interested in homes for sale in Cedar Park, my blog post is just going to tell them about Cedar Park in general, right? The links need to get them to the actual houses for sale. Super important. Okay, so we've got the link in there. The next piece becomes the landing page. And you guys are going to hear me probably 5 times after this talk about how important these landing pages are, because this literally is the I can't even spit that word out. The differentiator in your ability to generate leads. Like the people that I talk to who are really getting into this, they're doing a really good job with their blogging. They're getting their stuff to rank, and they can see maybe even traffic to their website. A lot of times it becomes like where they're sending people on their website, that landing page. Let's go in and look at what I'm talking about here, okay? And let's kind of dissect her blog post. And we've seen Katrina before, right? She's my superstar blogger here. She's generating a lot of traffic to her website and a lot of leads because she's gotten very good at understanding this concept of linking. And so as we look in here, the first sentence we see basically tells them, hey, do you want to find condos for sale similar to the Bavarian Village? Like, this is where you go. Okay, and so if somebody had landed here, you know, doing a search like Bavarian Village condos for sale in Anchorage, when they get here, they might start reading through, or they might just head over here and want to see the listings right away. Right? We see this link above the fold. It's the first kind of call to action in her blog post, and it clearly identifies for the person on the other side. All right, now let's go over and look at where we actually sent them, and we sent them to a page on our website that has 2 homes, 2 condos, and they're both in that little subdivision, that little complex. Okay, this part of it is probably, if your website is ill-equipped to do one thing, it might be this. And that's your ability to really drill down and only give listings in a specific area. And let me try to walk you guys through how she got to this point, okay? What she did is she came in here to her website just like she was a consumer who would be landing on that search page. Should open this in a new tab here so we can keep this one. Let's just stop that. Okay, so that's going to open up here in a minute, but she went in and performed the search that she would have wanted the consumer to do and essentially eliminated a bunch of the extra clicks, right? Because had she simply sent them to the search page on her website, you know, maybe she was thinking, well, you know, I don't know exactly what they want. I don't know if they want 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms. I don't know how much they're willing to spend. So I'm just going to put them on this search page. Well, what ends up happening is people actually want you to put them in the right place. They want you to show them what they want, even though you might not know what that is. Does that make sense? And so she was able to say, look, let me drill this search down before I ever send the consumer there, and let me get them landing on listings that are in this area. It's interesting. I'm dialed in and everything. Look at that. Dialed in. I'm all plugged into the internet. Okay, I'll tell you what. We'll let that page load. We'll come back to how she was able to kind of drill down into these listings, and maybe we'll just end up finishing with that. But the idea is you got to get them to a page that has listings on it, and they need to be listings kind of at least near that area, around that area, you know, as close as you can get. Don't let this be a thing, though, where you go, well, shoot, my website won't do that, so I'm just going to send them to the search page. No, you got to send them to a page that lands them on listings. Because even if they thought they wanted to be in the Bavarian Village condos, but you could only get yours to kind of show condos in that area in a certain price range, and maybe there's a few on this page from a different building next door or something, that's all right. Okay, the idea is you'll want them on your site looking at listings, because as they start to dive in then, as they start to look at listings on your site, hopefully you have some lead capture opportunities with your website. Here's the deal, you guys. When people are doing searches like we're talking about when they're finding our content, they're not 12 to 18 months out on average like the average person is, right? Those people find Trulia and Realtor.com and Zillow because they do a search like homes for sale in Anchorage or Anchorage condos. When they start to do more specific searches like Bavarian Village condos, they're still about, I don't know, we found when we used to have our real estate company, they're still about 4 months away from buying. But they're still not probably ready to pick the phone up and call you. Like, they just want to see the listings, right? That's why you have to have good lead capture in place on your landing pages. So in every case, okay, we're going to take a chance to maybe not just link to listings once, like at the top here like she does, but maybe a little bit further down the page too. We go in here and we add another link. So she's talking about a specific building here, but she says, hey, you know what? You can also find some other condos kind of in the area, right, by going to this link. And so she's got a link that takes you to maybe a little bit larger area kind of around that condo complex, right? So she's not just kind of sitting there and going, all right, well, one time I'm going to give them a link to listings and that's it, right? She takes some opportunities in here to maybe show them a couple of different links back to find listings on her website. And then we see a bunch of other links on here. And as you kind of start to look at these things apply to giving them additional information. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Now, the byproduct of a proper link strategy is super important. And it becomes this idea that the site we're linking to will start to rank better in the search engines. Essentially, your own website, right? When Katrina's in here writing a blog post about the Bavarian Village condos, she's obviously going to link that back to her website. But what happens is over time, and we see this in here, right? We're on Google, we're search. We could even do Bavarian Village condos for sale or something, Anchorage. What's going to happen is we're going to see her blog post coming up here, but just below that, well, you guys are going to have to look at, we see her website. There it is. And look at this. When we actually do for sale, I don't know if you noticed the difference. Like Bavarian Village Condos, Anchorage, brought her blog posts up first. Bavarian Village Condos for sale, Anchorage, actually brings her website up. And so what's happened is throughout the course of her writing blog posts, taking the opportunity to link back to her website with good anchor text has started to tell Google that not only are her blog posts a good source for content about Bavarian Village condos, her website is also a good source for content about the Bavarian Village condos. And in her case, well, it'll pull up when it pulls up, but in her case, she actually is able to create like individual pages on her site. And so what we see here is actually a page that she's created for the Bavarian Village condos, right? So she's got her blog post that's on the first page. She's got this page on her website that's on the first page. And she's able to do that because she understands that the byproduct of a good linking strategy is that the site that she's linking to will actually start to perform better in the search engines. Okay, that's a very important thing to understand because it's really one of the powers of your blog. And you know, recently we did a merge where we took ActiveRain and we brought it into the Trulia domain. And so today, those links that you get out of your blog post, Google see those as being links off Trulia's domain, which they put a lot of credibility towards, which means that these links we get out of our blog are super effective in helping our own website, right? And here's her website, and then here's her blog post, rank in the search engines. Interesting. All right, so we talked about links, right? I'm sure we'll have some questions about that, and we'll come back and answer those at the end. So the next thing we could potentially do as it relates to listings is maybe we can entice somebody to get over to our website by using an image. Both of these images that I created in less than 3 minutes. Okay, now I'm familiar with iPicky. The first time you create an image like this, it might take you 10 or 15 minutes, okay? But once you do it once, it's really easy to create images like this for your blog post. So if my blog post was about, new construction in Kirkland under $400,000, let's say that was the title of my blog post, well, I might create an image that I would then use in the post to get somebody to click here. Now, once I have the image and I upload an image into ActiveRain, and I've got my blog editor open and the image is on the page, in order to turn that image into a link, all I need to do is click on the image and then click the little link icon. Just like if I had highlighted some words and then click the link icon, that turns those words into a link. If I click and highlight the picture and then click the link icon, that will allow me to turn an image into a link. So if I've got an image that says something like, click here to start, to search new construction in Kirkland under $400,000, then I'd want to link that to what? To a page on my website, hopefully, that shows, homes for sale in Kirkland under $400,000, probably, built in 2013, or built after 2013, something like that. But again, think about these, because, images entice people, right? That first off, like, we kind of want to have an image, and we talked about this in our SEO class, just to kind of get all those things lined up. We want to have an image in there. When somebody lands on the page, right, an image is going to kind of draw them in and get them, reading and flowing into the content. But an image like this, right, where we're kind of enticing them to take action, these things will absolutely get people to notice, right, and click. If they've just kind of read through your post about, new construction in Kirkland, and then your first link was at the top, right, that above the fold one, and they're kind of down the page a little bit, that's where we might have an image down there, kind of enticing them to do what it is we wanted them to do, which was to get over to our website and find the listings for sale today. Okay, again, these things are super easy at iPicky.com, and Alicia's sending out the links for those as we're going through here. Think about, like, your images in terms of like a deal, right? Something like this, like banks want these Green Lake foreclosures sold. Find them here. Like, this is something where I could use this image inside of all kinds of relevant content as it related to Green Lake, right? It didn't have to be just about like homes for sale in Green Lake, or it didn't have to be, just on a blog post that I wrote about, foreclosed properties for sale in Green Lake, right? This could be on something, maybe I'm writing about like a local event happening in Green Lake, right? And I kind of just put this enticing image in there that says, hey, Mr. Guy that's about to attend the local food festival down in Green Lake, maybe you're interested in like a great deal on a foreclosure, right? And granted, 99% of the people that might find a post about the food festival in Green Lake aren't going to be thinking about buying a foreclosure. But why wouldn't we take the opportunity inside of a post like that to use a relevant image that talks about some kind of a deal, right, in that area? Again, I just can't impress upon you enough. Make sure to land them in the right spot. If you look at this page right here, this page that I have somebody landing on, this is a search for homes for sale in Green Lake. And if you look in that little search homes box, you can see Green Lake in there. And then I did the search based on foreclosures. And so what it's showing me is these are the 5 homes in Green Lake right now that are on the market as of the day I created this search that are in foreclosure, right? Somebody landing on this page after having clicked a banner like this, they got what they wanted. It's pretty clear and evident to them that these are foreclosed homes in Green Lake, right? So this concept of being able to land somebody in that exact spot, I mean, this is, if you take one thing away from this class today, that's it. When you're writing about something specific, the paths you give them back to find listings need to be very specific paths. Whenever I do this kind of a call in front of a group, I always ask the group, like, live, like where I can see hands going up. I always say, how many of you guys can create a search and create links on your website like this, links to your website like this, that land people in very specific spots? And it's about a third of the audience won't be able to do it. They know their website can't do that. About a third of the audience knows their website can do that, and about a third of the audience just doesn't know. And so I would encourage you, if you're one of those people that just doesn't know, you need to figure it out. You need to figure out what kind of flexibility does your website give you to be able to link to very specific places on your site that show very specific sorts or types of listings. Okay, again, in the example that I'm using, a market leader site, they allow you to really kind of slice and dice the search just like a consumer would if they're on your site, but you can slice it and dice it for them in advance and then have that link be out of your blog post talking about that specific thing, right? Like in our case here, foreclosures in Green Lake. Another way that we can get them to listings potentially would be search widgets. So if your website provides for you like some of this HTML code that allows you to create a search widget like these, you could potentially come out here and place it on your site. And so she's got her search widgets down here in her widgets on the right side of her ActiveRain blog. And again, that's there for every blog post that she writes. She's kind of got this ability for people to search for additional information. And Google does just not want to open that page for me for some reason. Try it again and see if it ends up coming up. So if you have search widgets, think about where would be some good places to get them in here. But again, remember, the search widget forces them to do some clicks, right? It forces them to pull the drop down. It forces them to put in a price. It forces them to put in beds and baths. That might be fine, right? If somebody was on like a general post of ours, maybe how to buy a house with a low down payment. Katrina has one of those. We'll see in a minute. Right? Like that might be a good place to have a search widget, because then when they get down kind of reading, we don't know. They weren't searching online for Bavarian Village condos. We don't know to send them to a very specific place on our website. But if they were looking for something more general, a search widget might be a great way to kind of get them over to your website. Here's the thing, though. If you use widgets anywhere, so I'm not just talking here about ActiveRain, right? I mean, obviously that's the core of what we discuss here, but these same concepts apply to WordPress, or if you have a Blogger blog or wherever. Keep it clean with your widgets. Like, there's lots of stuff out there you could put on your website, but always remember, what's the point of this stuff that I'm doing, right? It's not to show them the weather in their area, okay? It's not to show them, you know, how many visitors you've had on your blog, right? There's all these little widgets that you can put on your stuff. I would never put a widget in unless it was going to serve an end that I'm trying to accomplish. And in this case, that's generating leads with my blog. Like, I would never put this to the squirrel, right? Like, somebody's on your blog, like, looking at, you know, condos in the Bavarian Village condo complex. Like, I don't want any distractions on that page. Okay, so we talked about listings a little bit. Let's talk for a minute about home values. I get this question all the time. I want to use my blog to generate seller leads. And I hate to burst your bubble here, but seller leads are a heck of a lot more challenging to generate than buyer leads are with a blog, okay? One of the reasons is the way people search for home values is not, they don't do it on the long tail as much as to how people search for houses or for listings, right? A search for home values is going to be something more like, you know, what is my Seattle house worth, Seattle house values, Seattle home values. You know, the searches are generally very short, big head sort of things, and the companies that come up are the Zillows and the Trulias and the Realtor.coms and the Homes.com and, you know, Redfin in some of our markets and kind of these big sites, right? So how do we kind of fit into that idea of you know, potentially getting a few kind of listing leads out of our blogs? And I think the key thing to think about here is to always ask if they need a valuation, right? It's not always somebody that's looking to buy that does a search like Bavarian Village condos for sale. It might actually be a potential seller who's looking to investigate who out there is doing a good job with their little nook of their little neck of the woods, right? So like that the person, if they live in the Bavarian Village condos and are thinking about selling, they might go online to kind of investigate who out there is marketing properties in my location. And that's where they might come across something like we see here, right? So they get to her Bavarian Village post and they get in here and they're like, oh, read a little bit about this, and wow, this lady seems to be doing a pretty good job. Ooh, and look at this. She sold all these condos in here, right? She probably wants to give them a chance to find out what their home is worth, right? And she actually misses. Like for all of the, Katrina has done such a good job of taking what we've talked about and applied it, but every once in a while, this is a great example, you miss just something in there that you probably wanted to have in there, right? She probably wanted to have a chance in here to drive somebody back. That is just too strange. To drive somebody back to the sell page on her website. Now, hopefully you have a page on your website that actually allows somebody to give you their address and their contact information if they wanted to figure out what their home was worth. So all this would be in here for her is a link somewhere that says, you know, hey, if you're interested in finding out what your condo in this building is worth because you're thinking about selling, you know, head over here. Right? Head over to that sell page. There it is. Look at that. All right, we're rocking and rolling on the internet again, I hope. It's this sell page on her website, and of course it's going to do its thing. But she's got this landing page, right, where somebody can absolutely find a way to get a valuation on their home, okay? The landing pages on this sort of a thing can really differentiate. And so as I was putting this class together, I've never shared these guys before. You know, the market leader sites have, you know, and a lot of your websites will have kind of this page where you can send somebody. But what happens is sometimes those pages maybe aren't set up in the most optimal fashion. All right, they work. All right, they absolutely work. But when we're talking about small percentages here, and we're talking about, you know, maybe 100 people that have been sent to a page, you know, the difference between converting at 4% and at 7% might not seem like that much, but when you think about 100 people landing on a page, that's 3 more leads. And if just one of those became a seller, like, it starts to become really, really important. This page that you guys see right here, this is an example from a company called listingstoleads.com, and Alicia's going to send the link out for that right now. You can create, and it's a paid thing, and guys, I don't have any affiliation with these folks. I've just seen it out there a lot. I know a lot of agents who use these. You can create these really simple landing pages for things like somebody who wants to find out the value of their home. Let's try this because I kind of had it set up. We want to see this, so you guys just hang tight with me real quick here. Nah, let's not do that. Oh, that's really... All right, I'm not going to be able to show you live, but let me tell you what this does, okay? When you land on this page as a consumer, right? So let's say we're the consumer who, they're in a house in a subdivision somewhere in Anchorage, and they go online and they Google their subdivision, right? Because they want to see what agents really market in our subdivision really well. And they find Katrina's blog post, and they get in there, and somewhere in her blog post there's a link to a page where they can get a home value for their house. When they click that link and they land on one of these listings to leads landing pages, what happens is kind of creepy, all right? After about 2 seconds, that little property field right there will actually pull in their property address. Now, I've tried this with about 5 different people, and 4 out of the 5 times it got the right property address, which is kind of creepy, right? The cool thing about that is even if they don't hit anything, even if they don't hit submit, I know that somebody at that address landed on this page. That's valuable. That's super valuable. Now, when they hit go, right, they can confirm if it's their address. If it's not, they can type their address in. But when they hit go, right, now we got their address for sure. Okay, and we know that somebody at that address wanted a valuation on their property. The next page asks for their email address. And it actually pulls in a Google Street View of their house. Again, kind of creepy, but really cool, right? Like, it lets them know, like, you know their house, right? You're about to give them a valuation on their home. Now, from there, it's a matter of you now have an address of somebody, you've got an email address, there's even an ability for them to give you a phone number, right? You have a chance now you have a listing lead, right? If you're a very aggressive agent, you probably show up at their doorstep with a CMA prepared. But the idea that this thing will actually grab their address, to me, is really, really cool. But again, we're always kind of in our blog post taking an opportunity, especially for writing about a specific place, to just ask them, like, do you want a home evaluation, a free evaluation? And maybe it's even like with an image, right? Again, this is an image that I created on iPicky that took me about 2 minutes to create. I already talked about this, but no matter where the visitor originates, we need a landing page that converts. And those listings to lead landing pages are so cool because they start converting right when the person lands there. Right? Again, just throughout this in this calls to action class, right, there's things we can do in our blog post, and we want to make sure we've got our first link above the fold. We want to make sure we use anchor text that matches our keyword phrase. We want to make sure we're sending them to a very specific place because landing pages are super duper important. Right? When we write a blog post about a subdivision or a condo complex, we want to take an opportunity in there to ask them, do you want to find out what what your Cedar Ridge condo is worth? Right? That landing page is super duper important. We could also use embedded forms. And there's a site called woofu.com that is really easy to use. Again, these sites are, for all the time that I spend online and these classes that I hold for you guys and stuff, like, I'm not the type of guy that goes to a website and tries to just figure it out. That's just not me. Like, I'm more likely to go YouTube something and have somebody show me an explanation of it. But both these sites, iPicky and Woofu, are super simple. Like, they're the types of sites where even a guy like me who doesn't like to try to learn something from scratch can go to these sites and kind of they take you through the flow of like setting up your first form. Right? Now, once you set up a form, you can then take it, that HTML code, and you can embed it into your blog post. Don't know how to embed a piece of HTML code? Go to ActiveRain and search embed HTML code in my blog. Right? Somebody on ActiveRain has created a tutorial for you to watch to figure out how to do this stuff. Again, it's one of those things where the first time you do it, maybe it takes you a half hour, but then you got it dialed in, and now you could create forms that you would potentially embed on your blog, and they could be forms for anything, right? They could be, hey, get a free valuation on your home. They could be, hey, get a list of foreclosures in the area. They could be, get $500 free inspection when you buy a home with me. Like, whatever it is, right? You're just trying to get them to reach out to you for some reason through a form. Okay, so this next piece becomes they want information, right? And again, our blog posts are generally serving this purpose, right? This idea that they want information. But so the first one, I guess, is make it easy for them to ask you for more details. You could use something like a Google Voice widget. We've got those, I talked about them earlier, right? The virtual card up here that kind of has your phone numbers in here already, and so there's, it's pretty easy for them to be able to find that stuff. But just think about what are some of these other ways that I could maybe make it easy for somebody to reach out and connect with me, right? This is something, my signature line wants to be really clean and clear on that sort of thing. One of the things I'd say right here, she's got this in here, but I probably, and she sets it off in red, I might I mean, even simple things like adding dashes in there, right, to really let somebody know, like that's a phone number. Really think about how this page lays out, and as somebody's reading through it, like what are those points that I have, right? I got a point here for them to connect with me. I've got a point here. I've got a point here, right? Later on, she's got some points here, right? And these become segues to more information. And so every time you write a blog post, I want you to be thinking about, like, either what do I have in my library already that might be appropriate for this, or maybe even like, what should I have in my library, right? Like, what's my next blog post that I should write that I could come back and incorporate in some of my past posts? So this how to buy a house with a low down payment, this post for her has like 1,500 clicks on it, but when I do the search, like if I search how to buy a house with a low down payment in Anchorage, the post doesn't come up on the first page, which tells me something. It tells me that that post is getting clicked on a lot from inside of her other blog posts. So if somebody's searching for, a condo in Bavarian Village, right, she kind of knows her market. I mean, look, these are prices of homes that range from 95 to 110,000. So, there's a pretty good chance that somebody reading this post, they might want to know how to buy a house with a low down payment, right? They might want to apply online to see which low down payment mortgage options they qualify for, right? And again, if you look at where the link goes, you can kind of see it down here in the bottom corner when I scroll over it. This is going to go to a page on her website. It's a finance tab. Right? This is going to go to a blog post that she's written about how to buy a house with a low down payment in Anchorage. But that idea is that when they land on one piece of content, really, consciously think about what is some other information that they might be interested in. Let's go back here. Let me talk about this for just a minute longer, because she's got some other things on here that she uses as kind of hooks. Right? And really, we're fishing, right? We're just throwing as many hooks out there as we can. So she's got this call to action in here, an image call to action that says, hey, pick your future neighbors, get few free community reports for my website. We have a couple of images just like this. And Alicia, I apologize, I didn't give you this link ahead of time, but it's activerain.trulia.com/blogging-blueprint. And if Alicia can pull that up for you, I'll type it in here so everybody can kind of see. activerain.trulia.com/blogging-blueprint. That page right there. Okay, at the bottom of that page is a couple of these images, these calls to action images that Katrina uses in her posts. And there's 3 different ones. There's like pick your neighbors, there's like check out school information, and I can't remember what the third one is, but there's just some really cool visual calls to action that link us back to, hopefully, pages on your website that could potentially give somebody that kind of information. Down here below, she talks about, free community school and demographic reports. She links you to pages on her website that talk about elementary schools, right? She's got all these things happening on the back end of her website that give people really great information about the area, right? And the stuff that happens on her website, the listings, the market reports, the school information, the demographic information, the market trends, there's all this stuff that Katrina has on her website that she can link back to from an information perspective. That stuff all stays updated on her website, right? She never has to maintain it. So what happens is she creates a blog post once that she never has to maintain, and it links back to places on her website that maintain themselves, right? The listings always stay updated. The community information always stays updated. The school information always stays updated. So one time she's created a post that's continuing to work for her over a year after she wrote it. I want you to think about some of the other things of value that we could deliver to somebody, right? Best price properties in this city, foreclosures and short sale lists, discounts on services, free resources like guides, PDFs maybe. Guys, in a lot of our markets right now, you guys, pocket listings are coming up, right? Inventory's low, and an agent in the office gets gets a listing. It's not going to go on the market for a week. But maybe your office has like some pocket listings where you could use that as a hook out there, right? I might do this little image call to action that says, hey, to find out about some listings before they hit the market, click here. Now, how would we, let's say we had a resource. Let's say it was a short sale guide. Let's say it was a relocation guide. Let's say it was a, 15 steps to get the best deal on your house, on your next house, whatever it is, right? Let's say we had something in our hands. It was a Word doc, maybe. We just written up a Word doc. Or maybe taken a couple of our blog posts and put them together, and we were going to create a PDF out of them. So the first thing we need to do is create the PDF, right? Again, this stuff is not, I know when I say this, there's probably a bunch of people that go, ugh, create a PDF, are you kidding me? Like, no, I can't do that. This stuff's not that hard, right? Google it. Right? YouTube probably has 50 million videos on how to create a PDF. Then you got to host it somewhere, right? You can actually host PDFs now on Wufoo. You can host them on Google Docs. Maybe your website allows you to host files on your website. Then you're going to create a form, like a Wufoo form, for instance. Or a Jot form is another site that you can go to that allows you to easily create these forms. And then when you create a form, it gives you the option to decide what to do once somebody submits that form. So let's say you have a PDF, so the guide to short sale your home. You host it somewhere. You then create a form on Wufoo that was just, it might even be as simple as like name and email address, right? And then a title, and the title might say, get your free short sale guide, right? Name, email address. When they put in their name and email address and hit submit, you can decide then what that form does. Okay, it might send them an email that gives them a link to where to find your short sale guide. You could show them a link on the page that takes them to where that guide's at, right? So there's these easy ways that you guys can deliver information beyond just putting it out there for free, right? Could you put it out there for free? Absolutely. Should you try to think about a way that you can potentially try to trade that valuable information that you've created or that valuable resource you've created for an email address? You absolutely should think about that. Okay, so let's do some questions now. And while we're doing that, I want to just pull this up and see. So I apologize, you guys. I was testing my internet out before we jumped on here, and I was flying around. It was just fine. So we might not be able to, oh, here we go. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you guys earlier in terms of how to really drill down on a specific area on your website. And I want to show you, assuming this thing doesn't take too long, how she does this, right? So we're talking about the Bavarian Village condos. She kind of has an idea of what price range those condos would be in, right? So she probably want to have like a city in here, so she says Anchorage, right? So she's doing the search just like a consumer would do the search. She puts a price range in here. She does some bedrooms. I don't know if there's any one bedrooms in that place, but maybe there are, so she might say, hey, 1+. Property type, she's only doing condos, right? She takes off the features, and then she just searches. And when she searches, her website's going to give her a list of properties. You know what? This isn't going to work because it's just going to take too long. Here's the point. Can you get to pages on your website that are very specific, right? That have certain listings in certain areas? If you don't, if you can't, if you're just not sure, if what I'm talking about is just absolutely foreign to you, at the end of this call, there's a little survey you guys can fill out. Take a second to say you'd like some information about Market Leader. Their websites are designed with one purpose in mind, and it's lead generation. And there's all these hooks and school reports and demographic information and the sell tab and just all this stuff on there, right? The finance tab and her ability to create these unique pages for subdivisions and condo complexes. And she just has all these little hooks in there that are designed to generate leads. It's one of the reasons why Katrina is able to generate the volume of leads that she's generating, because she understands these hooks, she understands how to point people back to them, and then she takes an opportunity at almost every turn to kind of give them another hook, right? Whether it be, you can get some information about schools, right? Hey, pick your neighbors by looking at demographic information. There's all this stuff that she's got on the back of her website that allows her to really be effective at generating leads. All right, let's go in here and answer a few questions. And again, I really apologize for the Kathleen says, this is maybe not necessarily applicable to today's class, but she says, is it better to brand yourself like KathleenFaraday.com, or would a business name like luxury-boston.com be a better? Here's what I would say about like your domain. All right, it should be something that's fairly easy for people to remember, Kathleen. So if that's your name, like, it's not going to hurt you from a search engine perspective if it's your name versus like luxury-boston.com. Okay, the days of like exact match domains and those having an impact on search are gone. So I mean, it's not like super long where it won't fit on your business card. Thank you, Scott. Because again, my internet is just ridiculous right now. Here we go. While that's pulling up here, this is that example from listings to leads that, again, if I wasn't having these issues, you'd be able to see it actually pull in my address, which again, kind of creepy, but super effective. Brian says, are there any free alternatives to Market Leader you could recommend? I mean, take what I say with a grain of salt, right? Like ActiveRain and Market Leader are part of the Trulia family of companies. You get what you pay for with real estate websites. And I mean, if you're going to take the time to create content, to do things online with the idea of generating leads, you're going to have to pay to play on your website. And in fact, today, I'm trying to think, that are a little bit less expensive maybe than a Market Leader would be, but again, in this space, you get what you pay for. And you know, you can go on the high end and you can get sites for thousands of dollars, right? But like, you really want to think about your site in terms of lead generation. And in the middle of May, I'm going to do a class about, I'll get notified of it. I'm going to talk about like 6 or 7 essential elements that you have to have in your IDX. And I'm not a, so yes, you really need to have, you know, the ability to link to direct places. You need to have kind of this other data on your site, things like, for that sort of a thing, like he says. So they're great leads, they're just not as many. Sherry, you have a chat function, and see what we can do here. I want to try, because somebody asked the question, can he show how you do the map functionality and then come back? And the answer might be no, but here's the deal. If the answer is no and it's looking like no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a short video for you guys, okay? And I'm going to post it. You can do a search. Then on a Market Leader site, you can switch to the listing view, the map view. You can then manipulate the map to get it so it's just giving listings in a certain area, like, for instance, in a certain building or in a certain subdivision. And then you can flip the map back and have it be this list view of houses. So what you end up with is only the houses for sale in the portion of the area of the map that you drilled down to, which means I can get a link to a very specific page on my website that shows listings only in a certain area. And that's a big deal. All right, so internet's commons.wikimedia.org. Okay, I can't take us there because I don't have internet, which is really weird because you guys can all hear me, which means my internet is going, maybe it's all just getting sucked up by GoToWebinar. But common.wikimedia.org is a place where you can find some free images. I get all of my images because I don't want to have any issues with it. I get mine from a site called Fotolia, and we have a subscription to Fotolia, there it is, Fotolia.com. But I get all my images from there. We pay for them. You know, they're not super expensive. But commons.wikimedia.org would be another one. You know, whenever I run into an issue like that, I go to Google and I search for, you know, commercial use free images, something like that. All right. So we'll have the video recording of this, guys, for you guys a little bit later this afternoon. It could be first thing tomorrow morning that you actually see it in your email inbox. Appreciate you guys joining me. If you have any further questions, there's one thing I want to mention. This is the last day for the promo, the bootcamp promo. So if you'd like to upgrade your account to a Rainmaker for 24 bucks a month, arpromo.com/boot24. We'll send that out to you in an email as well. If you have any questions I didn't get a chance to answer today, facebook.com/ActiveRain. I'll be monitoring that page all day. Make sure we get all of your guys' questions answered. I appreciate you guys joining me. On Monday, I'm going to do a class with a guy named Jeremiah Taylor. We're going to talk about generating listing leads. So there are some things you can do online. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about some offline ways to generate listing leads, boots on the ground type of stuff. Jeremiah is an awesome presenter. I've had him on ActiveRain University a few times in the last couple of years. We always have some really great conversations, and the people that attend always walk away with some really great information. So keep an eye open for that class on Monday, May 5th. 6 ways to generate seller leads. I've got a 7th way in my head already. Jeremiah and I have been crushing this presentation out. We're going to give you guys some really good stuff. That's it, guys. We're wrapped up on this round of boot camps. If you have any questions, go to the Facebook page, ask your question. I'll be there all day. I'm there every day checking in, see if anybody's got questions I can answer. You guys have an awesome rest of your week. On behalf of Chris and Alicia, we're always behind the scenes making these things run smooth, even though my internet stunk today. My name is Bob Stewart. Bye-bye, everybody.